My brother's situation became turbulent, being looped into calls with other friends of his and advisors that did include some of his staff. I understand why that was a problem for CNN. It will not happen again. I know where the line is. I can respect it and still be there for my family, which I must. I have to do that. I love my brother. I love my family. I love my job.
Well, that was CNN's Chris Cuomo trying to explain away his decision to join strategy sessions to defend his brother, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, from sexual harassment allegations. Want to bring in our panel of former White House insiders. Jason Miller is a senior advisor to the 45th president of these United States, Donald Trump. Steve Cortes was an advisor to President Trump. He's also now a new part of the Newsmax family with the new show, Cortes and Pellegrino. It airs weeknights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on Newsmax. Good afternoon to both of you. Steve, I'll start with you. This Chris Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo affair, the latest in a bizarre saga with the two brothers. We had them pulling out the oversized Q-tips to make a joke of the actual testing for COVID, all while his brother was literally hiding dead grandparents on spreadsheets. How do we actually get past this and get the people to trust the media, have any actual credibility when it comes to how CNN has handled this?
Well, Joe, certainly the people should not trust CNN. And I, like Jason, am a former CNN commentator, so I can say that I hope with some degree of authority. It is not a network or a platform to be trusted. This is just the latest example of it. By the way, Chris Cuomo, I mean, we could go over his ethical lapses time and again. His treatment of his brother is a prime example of it, but also him literally faking his emergence from supposed COVID quarantine. He filmed it with his family, put it on his television program. We found out later there was a complete lie. He had already been out of the house. As a matter of fact, he had had altercations with members of the public with his family out in public. So he has a long history of deception. Here's the thing. I have no problem with him advising his brother. I think that's normal and natural. What I have a huge problem with is the lack of transparency, is the fact that he pretends that he's an anchor and that he's a journalist rather than an activist. If he would just be transparent with the American people about what he actually is, then I think this most recent revelation wouldn't be such a big deal.
Well, Jason, I think to that point, I think any person can sympathize with wanting to be there for your brother, wanting to be there for a family member going through a difficult period in time. I think the issue becomes the lack of transparency and also this flip-flopping from CNN saying that first he can't cover his brother, then when it's advantageous for the ratings that he can cover his brother ad nauseum, and now feigning as if they were unaware of the fact that somehow he was actually on the phone having strategy sessions.
Fredo, I knew it was you all along. Our favorite Chris Cuomo. It's so fun to dunk on Chris for as big of a jerk as he is to President Trump and Trump supporters all across the country. But here's the other thing with CNN. It's the one standard for me, another standard for thee. And that's really the problem, is the rank hypocrisy here. The way that they would attack, say, someone on Newsmax for being a Trump supporter, an unabashed Trump supporter, which is fine, saying that, well, there must be some additional level of transparency, where CNN holds itself to this higher standard. I want to take a kind of step back here. I think over the years, people have thought networks such as MSNBC might be further to the left, folks such as Newsmax and others might be to the right, and then CNN is right down the middle. Fact of the matter is, CNN is just as far left as MSDNC, and that's the thing that I think people need to realize here.
Want to switch gears a little bit, Steve. I'll come to you because I think many Republicans are looking at a disastrous employment numbers. They're looking at a disaster on the southern border. They're looking at Gaza burning, and they're thinking, how in the world are Democrats going to try to sell this during the midterms? It seems as if we may have our answer right now with the latest announcement from the Attorney General in New York that they're basically shifting from a civil investigation to criminal investigations of President Trump. It appears as if they're going to literally hang the potential of Donald Trump being perp walked over the heads of America like the sword of Damocles for the next 2 years.
Sure. And Joe, I don't think this is going to work with the American people, because even people who are not particularly politically astute right now, they're keenly aware of what's happening in their life when they go to the gas pump, when they go to the grocery store. They know that their prices, that this Biden inflation spike is very real and that prices are soaring already, only months into the Biden presidency. But I think you're right, the point you're making about Letitia James and what she is trying to do in New York. Unfortunately, she, and there's a lot of prosecutors like this, terrible prosecutors in this country, many of them George Soros backed, rather than viewing the law as an instrument of justice, they are viewing it as a political weapon of vengeance. And that's the reality. She literally promised, and we saw it in some of the explosive videotapes that were released, she literally promised as a campaign pledge that she would go after Donald Trump. That's what she's trying to do right now. This is totally wrong. It's totally non-American. This is not how we pursue justice in this country. We don't start investigations in pursuit of a crime. And frankly, it reminds me of something that's very Stalin-esque. The head of his secret police allegedly told Joseph Stalin, the dictator, at one point, "You show me the man and I'll show you the crime." Unfortunately, that is the type of philosophy and agenda that is being pursued right now by the New York Attorney General.
All right, going to leave it there. Steve Cortez and Jason Miller, God bless you, my friends. We'll talk to you both soon.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.